A seemingly ordinary day in Oslo ends with a series of strange cases involving recently deceased people. They show signs of life, but are almost unresponsive to external stimuli. The plot centers on three families trying to figure out what to do now that their deceased loved ones are around again, albeit not as they were when they were alive. Jan Ajvide Lindqvist is a Swedish horror writer, and while his name is hardly on the lips of the average moviegoer, you probably know at least one of his creations, the novel Let the Right One In, which has been adapted for the screens 3 times, twice in feature film format and relatively recently, in 2022, as a television series. Handling the Undead is considered one of the most famous and successful books of the writer, and attempts to transfer it to the screen began immediately after its release, in 2005. The first version of the script was written by Lindqvist himself, but the film did not go into production, and eventually the novel was adapted not by Swedes, but by the Norwegians, so it's set not in Stockholm anymore, but in Oslo. Both movie versions of Let the Right One In are memorable, first of all, for their atmosphere of eternal winter, gradually freezing, consuming all humanity around. Thea Hvistendahl, the director of Handling the Undead, also focuses on what is difficult to verbalize and can only be felt. The first line in the movie is heard only at the 8th minute. The characters do not communicate with each other, preferring to isolate themselves from the world around them, to shut themselves in, so the movie, on the one hand, is extremely slow, and on the other hand, requires the viewer's attention, otherwise there is a chance to miss some detail, without which the picture of what is happening will be incomplete. Structurally, the movie is an almanac of the stories of 3 families, which almost in no way intersect with each other. In the house of an old woman suddenly returns her life partner, whom she has just taken to her final resting place. A young stand-up comedian loses his beloved wife in a car accident, but the deceased suddenly regains consciousness a few hours later, so now her husband does not understand what to do and how to tell their children about what happened. An elderly man digs up the coffin with his grandson, who has begun to show signs of life, and brings the boy home. His daughter, who is going through the grief, is pushed to the brink of madness by these news. Although the script contains some characters and plot moves from the book, Handling the Undead can hardly be called a full-fledged adaptation of the novel. Rather, it is a movie based on its motives, trying rather to find the intonation, to catch the spirit of the source material. It is a meditative movie, overflowing with longing and painted with the ligature of tragedy, about how difficult it is to let go of a loved one and move on with your life. But, unfortunately, it is not a reflection, but rather an observation, a collection of scattered notes that do not coalesce into something meaningful and complete, even with the very atmospheric visuals. We've seen a lot of horror films about the dead returning from the other side, but while in the vast majority of them this is only the beginning of a full-fledged story, Handling the Undead seems to refuse to go beyond the very first, most obvious thought, as if its creators were afraid that this would deprive their author's statement of its edge, turning an authentic festival arthouse into a genre movie. If so, they have achieved their goal. Handling the Undead is one of those films that makes you want to say, damn, it's another arthouse for snobs.